ash rained down like grey snow as plasma fire scorched the atmosphere. Hope was an expensive luxury reserved strictly for the dead. Down in the irradiated mud, a proud being of ancient magic finally surrendered to the abyss, only to feel a decidedly human grip haul him back from the edge. Artillery shells shattered the tree line of Sector 4, reducing ancient crystalline oaks to jagged splinters. Atticus Dupont, a spellweaver of the Sylvan vanguard, leaned heavily against the trembling earth of the trench. His breathing came in shallow, ragged gasps. A searing plasma burn had hollowed out his left side, cauterizing the flesh, but leaving a devastating toll on his internal organs. His innate restorative magic, usually a brilliant azure aura, flickered like a dying candle in a storm. Beside him, Arjun Barnes was frantically packing a wound sealant matrix into the gaping hole. Arjun was a human, a species the Sylvan High Council often dismissed as beautifully brief and tragic, possessing neither the grace of centuries nor the inherent connection to the ley lines. Yet in the mud and the misery of the Arcadian, front grace was entirely useless. "Hold still, damn it!" Arjun grunted, his grease-stained fingers working with terrifying speed. He slammed a compression bandage over the sealant, locking it into place with a magnetic clasp. "It is mathematically impossible, Arjun," Atticus said, his voice barely a breath against the deafening roar of the enemy's advancing mechanized walkers. "My core temperature is dropping. The mana pathways in my nervous system are severed. You need to fall back to the extraction point." "I am notoriously bad at math," Arjun replied, not looking up as he checked the power cell on his heavy pulse rifle. The extraction point was supposed to be exactly 200 yards away, inside a fortified bunker, where their commanding officer, Captain Gomer Boyd, was holding the heavily armored drop shuttle. The mission had been a joint operation: infiltrate the enemy forward, operating base, extract the stolen terraforming schematics, and get out. They had succeeded, but only because Atticus had exhausted his magic to bypass the security wards, and Arjun had physically ripped the central server drive from its mounts. Suddenly, Arjun's comlink crackled to life. "Barnes, Dupont, do you read?" Captain Boyd's voice filtered through the static, completely devoid of the panic that should have accompanied a heavy firefight. "We read you, Captain," Arjun shouted over the din. "Dupont is down. Severe plasma trauma. I need you to open the primary bulkhead and lay down suppressing fire. We are coming in hot." There was a long, agonizing pause on the other end of the line. When Boyd finally spoke, his tone was utterly chilling in its calm corporate detachment. "Negative Specialist Barnes, the enemy vanguard is too close. If I open the bulkhead, they breach the shuttle. I have the terraforming data drive. The mission is a success." Arjun froze, his hand tightening around his rifle. "Boyd, we are 200 yards away. You have twin automated rotary cannons on that shuttle. Give us 10 seconds of cover." "You know the protocols, Arjun." Boyd replied, his voice dripping with faux sympathy. "The data is worth more than a single human engineer and a drained elf. You two will act as a rear guard. Keep them distracted. Your sacrifice will be recorded in the company ledgers. Boyd out." The comlink died, replaced by a flat, endless tone. Atticus tilted his head, a bitter, blood-flecked smile crossing his pale aristocratic features. "The pragmatism of your kind," the elf whispered. "He is applying logic. We are dead weight. He gets the promotion, the corporate bonuses, and the glory at United Earth Orbital Command." Arjun slowly turned his head to look at the massive blast doors of the extraction bunker. Even from this distance, he could hear the heavy thrum of the shuttle's thrusters engaging. Boyd wasn't just leaving them. He was actively using their impending deaths as a diversion to ensure a smooth takeoff. The massive doors sealed tight a heavy metallic clank echoing over the battlefield, signaling their absolute abandonment. The heavy footsteps of the enemy walkers shook the ground, vibrating through the soles of Arjun's boots. The sky above was choked with black smoke, and the neon blue streaks of plasma fire. Atticus let his head fall back against the mud. He closed his eyes, his long pointed ears drooping as he prepared his mind for the final, peaceful transition back to the earth. "Leave me, I'm done," the elf cried softly, his voice finally breaking under the weight of his despair. "Run, Arjun. If you drop your gear and sprint for the eastern ravine, you might evade their thermal scanners. Go." A shadow fell over Atticus's face. The elf opened his eyes to see Arjun standing directly over him. The human wasn't looking at the eastern ravine. He was looking down at Atticus, his jaw set, his eyes burning with a fierce, irrational fire that defied all logic, all corporate ledgers, and all known mathematics. Arjun reached down, grabbing the heavy tactical harness on Atticus's chest. With a grunt of sheer adrenaline-fueled exertion, he hauled the tall elf off the ground, slinging Atticus's left arm over his shoulder. Arjun looked his dying friend in the eyes and smiled. It wasn't a happy smile. It was a terrifying, feral baring of teeth that promised absolute defiance. "Not today," Arjun said. The eastern ravine was out of the question. It was a known secondary route, and the enemy would undoubtedly have drone patrols sweeping it. Instead, Arjun chose the obsidian wastes, a jagged, irradiated stretch of crystallized rock formed by orbital bombardments decades ago. No one traversed the wastes. The terrain was razor-sharp, the air was toxic, and the electromagnetic interference rendered all standard navigation equipment useless. It was the perfect place for two dead men to disappear. For the first 4 hours, Atticus drifted in and out of consciousness. His world was a blur of agonizing pain, the smell of burnt ozone, and the rhythmic jarring thud of Arjun's boots hitting the glass-like ground. The human was practically carrying the elf's entire body weight. "Arjun," Atticus mumbled during a moment of clarity. "My internal bleeding. The sealant is failing." "Then I'll patch it again," Arjun wheezed. The human's face was pale, streaked with toxic ash and sweat. His armor was scored with glancing plasma hits. "Drink this." Arjun shoved a canteen into Atticus's hands. It wasn't water. It was a potent, illegal human combat stimulant, mixed with liquid ration paste. It tasted like battery acid, but it forced Atticus's heart to keep beating. "Why are you doing this?" Atticus asked, coughing, as the harsh liquid burned down his throat. Sylvan doctrine dictates that an injured unit must be left behind if they compromise the survival of the whole. Boyd followed doctrine. You are being illogical." Arjun paused behind an outcropping of black glass, lowering Atticus gently to the ground to catch his breath. He pulled a heavy roll of medical tape and another tube of sealant from his hip pouch. "Boyd didn't follow doctrine out of necessity," Arjun growled, tearing the tape with his teeth. "He followed it out of greed. He took the physical drive. But what that corporate suit doesn't know is that I'm the engineer who cracked the vault. I initiated a shadow copy of the terraforming schematics directly into my neural implant before I handed him the physical hardware." Atticus's eyes widened slightly. You have the data." "I have the data," Arjun confirmed, slapping the fresh sealant onto Atticus's wound, ignoring the elf's sharp hiss of pain. "And Boyd is going to march into the boardroom of Harrison and Hughes, interstellar law, slap down a drive, and claim he single-handedly saved the sector while mourning the tragic, unavoidable loss of his 2 brave subordinates." Arjun hoisted Atticus back up his knees, popping under the strain. "Humans don't run on math, Atticus. We run on spite. And right now, my primary motivation for keeping you breathing is so you can stand next to me at the tribunal when we absolutely destroy that man's life." The concept was utterly alien to the elf. Spite as a survival mechanism, Sylvan culture was built on harmony logic and the graceful acceptance of one's fate. To weaponize anger to cheat death was a profoundly human trait. Yet as Atticus leaned against Arjun, he felt a strange resonant warmth building in his chest, a spark of something that wasn't magic, but sheer willpower. Night fell over the obsidian wastes, plunging the temperature to near freezing. The razor-sharp ground had chewed through Arjun's boots, leaving a faint trail of his own blood on the glass. Every step was a fresh agony. Suddenly, the harsh whine of repulsor engines echoed through the jagged canyons. An enemy scout skiff was sweeping the area, its sweeping spotlight cutting through the ash-filled darkness. "Down!" Arjun hissed, dragging Atticus into a shallow, jagged crevasse. The spotlight swept over their position, pausing just feet away. The skiff hovered, and two heavily armed soldiers stepped out onto the glass, their thermal visors scanning the rocks. "They are tracking my body heat," Arjun whispered. "The combat stims have my core temperature running at 102. I stand out like a flare." Atticus looked at his own hands. His skin was ice-cold, his magic completely depleted, his body shutting down. "My temperature is dropping," the elf whispered back. "I will cloak you." "Atticus, no, you don't have the mana. I don't need mana." Atticus interrupted a faint echo of Arjun's earlier feral smile touching his lips. "I just need to freeze." Atticus rolled his body directly over Arjun, ignoring the blinding pain in his side. He pressed his freezing, failing body over the human's chest and head, acting as a living thermal blanket. The elf's natural physiology, now rapidly failing, absorbed the ambient cold of the wastes. The soldiers approached the crevasse. Arjun lay perfectly still beneath the elf, his hand gripping the handle of his combat knife, ready to fight to the death if discovered. He could feel Atticus's heartbeat slowing, ticking down like a broken clock. "Don't die on me," Arjun prayed silently. "Don't you dare let him win." The thermal scanner swept directly over them. The soldiers lingered for an agonizing 10 seconds, their boots crunching on the glass, right next to Arjun's head. "Nothing but cold rocks," one of the soldiers muttered in their guttural tongue. "Thermal sweep is negative. Let's move to the next grid." The skiff powered up and zoomed away into the night. Arjun immediately shoved Atticus off, panicked. "Atticus, hey, stay with me." The elf's eyes were rolled back. His breathing stopped. "No, no, no. Not today." Arjun roared into the empty night. He slammed his fists into the elf's chest, performing brutal, desperate chest compressions. "You promised me spite, you pointed-eared bastard, wake up!" He cracked a specialized medical stimulant, reserved strictly for cardiac arrest, and jammed it directly into Atticus's thigh. For 3 terrifying minutes, there was nothing but the sound of the wind howling through the glass canyons. Then, with a violent, choking gasp, Atticus's eyes flew open. He seized, coughing up a mixture of blood and black ash. Arjun collapsed backward, onto the sharp rocks, laughing hysterically, wiping tears and grime from his eyes. "Your bedside manner," Atticus croaked, his voice barely audible, "is completely unacceptable. File a complaint with HR when we get back." Arjun wheezed, hauling himself to his feet and offering a hand to the elf. It took them 3 more days to cross the wastes. 3 days of rationing drops of water, evading patrols, and surviving on nothing but the promised vision of Gomer Boyd downfall. When they finally stumbled into the neutral territory of the outpost of New Geneva, Arjun was practically dragging a comatose Atticus by his harness. A border patrol unit found them collapsed just inside the safe zone. As the medics rushed out with stretchers, Arjun refused to let go of Atticus's harness until he saw the green glow of stabilizing medical magic wash over the elf's chest. Only then did the human engineer allow his eyes to close his final thought, before unconsciousness focusing entirely on the encrypted data drive safely tucked away in his mind. The survival was a miracle, but the true battle the one fought in boardrooms' courts, and the public eye was only just beginning. High above the ash-choked atmosphere of the Arcadian front, the United Earth Orbital Command, UEOC space station, hung in the void like a glittering mechanical leviathan. Inside the opulent mahogany-lined walls of the executive boardroom, Captain Gomer Boyd was savoring the taste of a vintage 21st century scotch. He stood by the massive viewport, watching the war rage silently on the planet below, feeling nothing but a profound sense of personal accomplishment. According to his recently filed after-action report, Specialist Arjun Barnes and Sylvan spellweaver Atticus Dupont had died heroically overwhelmed by enemy walkers while providing crucial covering fire. Boyd had painted a beautiful tragic picture of their sacrifice. In return, the board of directors was preparing to award him the Silver Star of Commerce, a promotion to sector director, and a multi-million credit stock option bonus. The physical data drive containing the terraforming schematics sat securely on the boardroom table, encased in a biometric lockbox. It was the key to stabilizing the planet's atmosphere, a multi-trillion credit industry that his corporate overlords at Genesis Interstellar were eager to monopolize. Boyd smiled, raising his glass to his own reflection in the viewport. The math had worked out perfectly. Millions of miles away in the subterranean medical wards of the neutral outpost of New Geneva, the math was being violently rewritten. Atticus Dupont lay in a hyperbaric regenerative chamber, his pale skin illuminated by the soft green glow of ambient healing magic. The plasma burn on his side was finally closing, weaving a network of silver scar-like ley lines across his torso. He opened his eyes, feeling the slow, rhythmic hum of his restored heartbeat. Sitting outside the glass of the chamber was Arjun. The human looked terrible. His combat armor had been replaced with standard-issue medical scrubs. His arm was in a sling, and the bags under his eyes were the color of bruised plums. Yet his gaze was fixed intently on a holographic terminal projected from the neural port at the base of his skull. The chamber hissed open, and Atticus stepped out, his legs shaking slightly. "You look like a corpse, Arjun." The elf noted his voice, carrying its usual aristocratic dry wit, though softened by a deep, undeniable undercurrent of gratitude. "I feel like one," Arjun replied, not taking his eyes off the scrolling data. "But I have been very busy while you were taking your beauty sleep. I finally decrypted the shadow copy of the terraforming schematics." Atticus walked over, leaning heavily on the metallic edge of the console. "And is the technology as revolutionary as Genesis Interstellar claims? Will it cleanse the Arcadian atmosphere?" Arjun's face was grim. The feral, spiteful fire that had kept him moving through the obsidian wastes had crystallized into a cold, terrifying rage. "It will cleanse the atmosphere, yes, but the filtration bypass systems, they are deliberately rigged." Arjun tapped the console, expanding a complex chemical schematic. "The atmospheric scrubbers are designed to vent a localized, highly concentrated synthetic toxin into the groundwater as a byproduct." Arjun explained, his voice dropping to a harsh whisper. "It's a perfect space-age replication of a real-life historical atrocity. Back in the 21st century, on Earth, chemical corporations knowingly dumped perfluorooctanoic acid, forever chemicals, into civilian water supplies to manufacture non-stick consumer goods. They poisoned thousands to make a profit." Atticus's pointed ears twitched, his sylvan sensibilities appalled by the sheer calculated malice of the design. "You mean Genesis Interstellar?" Genesis Interstellar intends to terraform the planet, claim the government contract, and simultaneously poison the water supply of the 3 million indigenous colonists settling the lower valleys. Arjun finished. And coincidentally, Genesis owns the sole patent for the only cybernetic biofiltration systems capable of removing this specific synthetic toxin from the humanoid bloodstream. They create the disease, then sell the cure on a subscription basis. Boyd knew. A heavy, suffocating silence fell over the medical bay. The sheer scale of the betrayal transcended military pragmatism. It was an act of premeditated corporate genocide. "We must alert the High Council," Atticus said urgently. "We must summon the vanguard." "No," Arjun countered, his eyes narrowing. "A military strike plays into their hands. They have armies of lawyers who will tie this up in interstellar court for decades while the planet dies. If we want to destroy them, we don't use magic and we don't use guns. We use hard karma. We use their own system against them." Arjun disconnected his neural port, pulling up a secure, heavily encrypted communications channel. "Who are you calling?" Atticus asked. "A ghost," Arjun replied. "The legal system is corrupt, but there are still predators swimming in those waters who hunt corporations for sport." The screen blinked, and the face of an older, sharp-eyed human appeared. This was not a military man, nor a corporate suit. This was Stephen M. Cohn, a legendary real-life private whistleblower attorney whose reputation for dismantling corrupt government contractors spanned across the core systems. His firm, utilizing the forensic prowess of Kroll corporate investigations, was feared in every boardroom from Earth to Alpha Centauri. "Barnes Anos." Cohn's voice was like grinding gravel. "My associates at Kroll received the encrypted ping. You are supposed to be dead on Arcadian." "Reports of my death were a corporate accounting error, Mr. Cohn," Arjun said smoothly. "I have a data package for you. A blatant violation of the Interstellar Foreign Corrupt Practices Act, complete with premeditated biological sabotage. I have the source code, the engineering logs, and the private comms of the executive who ordered my execution to cover it up." Cohn's eyes gleamed with a predatory light. "Upload it to the secure server. Where is this executive now?" "He's at UEOC station." Arjun said, a slow, dark smile spreading across his face. "He's presenting the stolen data to the Genesis Board of Directors at 0800 hours tomorrow." "Then we have a great deal of work to do," Cohn replied, adjusting his wire-rimmed glasses. "Get to the station. I'll make sure the doors are unlocked." The Genesis Interstellar boardroom was a monument to wealth and untouchable power. A massive table of polished obsidian dominated the room, surrounded by 12 members of the board of directors. At the head of the table stood the CEO, a stern-faced oligarch named Richard Sterling. "Correction. Let us proceed with Richard Montgomery." Captain Gomer Boyd stood at the podium, dressed in an immaculate, customized dress uniform, the stolen biometric lockbox resting proudly in front of him. "Ladies and gentlemen of the board," Boyd projected his voice with practiced charisma, "the Arcadian terraforming project is secured. Despite the tragic yet necessary loss of Specialist Barnes and the Sylvan Auxiliary DuPont, I managed to extract the core schematics. This drive represents a new era of profitability for Genesis Interstellar." Montgomery nodded, slowly, clearly pleased. "Excellent work, Captain. The environmental contracts with the sector governors are ready to be signed. Let us verify the data, and your promotion will be authorized immediately." Boyd placed his thumb on the lockbox. It chirped cheerfully, sliding open to reveal a sleek silver data drive. He picked it up with a flourish and slid it into the primary boardroom mainframe. A holographic projection flared to life above the table. However, instead of complex terraforming blueprints, The hologram displayed a single flashing red icon. It was the logo of Kroll Corporate Investigations, rotating slowly beside the scales of justice. Boyd frowned, tapping the console. There seems to be a minor encryption glitch. Suddenly, the heavy glass doors of the boardroom hissed open. The security guards flanking the entrance moved to block the intruders, but stopped dead in their tracks as a highly publicized interstellar judicial warrant was thrust into their faces. Walking into the boardroom was Stephen M. Cohn, looking every bit the legal executioner, in a sharp, immaculately tailored suit. Behind him walked Arjun Barnes, wearing his scarred, scorched combat armor, and Atticus DuPont, walking tall and proud, an azure aura of protective magic humming softly around his shoulders. The color instantly drained from Boyd's face. He stepped back from the podium, his mouth opening and closing like a suffocating fish. "Barnes, DuPont. That's impossible. You're dead. The walkers." "Not today, Gomer," Arjun said, echoing the exact words he had spoken in the mud of the Arcadian front. Only this time he wasn't defying death. He was delivering it. "What is the meaning of this, CEO?" Montgomery bellowed, slamming his fist on the table. "Security, remove these men. I strongly advise against that. Mr. Montgomery." Stephen Cohn stated loudly, dropping a massive physical dossier onto the obsidian table. The sheer thud of the paper silenced the room. "Unless you wish to add obstruction of a federal interstellar investigation to your rapidly growing list of indictments." Cohn turned to face the board, his voice carrying the commanding weight of absolute legal authority. "My name is Stephen M. Cohn, representing Specialist Arjun Barnes under the extraterrestrial provisions of the Dodd-Frank Whistleblower Act," Cohn announced. "The drive Captain Boyd just inserted into your mainframe is a honeypot. It contains a self-executing forensic virus developed by Kroll Investigations, which is currently mirroring every classified server, private email, and shadow ledger in this building directly to the High Inquisitor's office." Boyd lunged for the console to rip the drive out, but Atticus flicked his wrist. A kinetic pulse of blue magic slammed into Boyd's chest, throwing the captain backward onto the floor. "Do not touch the evidence," the elf said, coldly, adjusting his cuffs. "Mr. Barnes almost told so." Cohn continued smoothly, did not simply extract the terraforming data. He cracked the vault, identified the malicious environmental engineering embedded within the schematics, and secured the true data within his neural implant. Captain Boyd was perfectly aware that the terraforming machinery was designed to purposefully contaminate the Arcadian water supply with a lethal, synthetic neurotoxin. Panic began to ripple through the board of directors. Montgomery looked at Boyd, who was scrambling to his feet, wide-eyed and sweating profusely. "It's a lie," Boyd screamed, pointing a trembling finger at Arjun. "He's a disgruntled, insubordinate contractor. He fabricated the logs." Arjun stepped forward. He reached up, tapped the neural port at the base of his neck, and synced it to the boardroom's secondary display. Instantly, the room was filled with the crisp, undeniable audio recording of Boyd's own voice from the Arcadian front. "The data is worth more than a single human engineer and a drained elf. You two will act as a rear guard. Keep them distracted. Your sacrifice will be recorded in the company ledgers." The recording looped once, the cold, sociopathic tone echoing off the mahogany walls. Following the audio, a cascade of encrypted emails between Boyd and Genesis Interstellar's chief bioweapons engineer filled the screens, explicitly detailing the profit margins they expected from the forced sale of the water filtration tech. Hard karma struck with the precision of a guillotine. "You see, Boyd," Arjun said, looking down at the broken executive. "You tried to run the math on our lives. You thought we were just numbers on a ledger. But you forgot one crucial variable. What Boyd choked out, realizing his life His career and his freedom were entirely incinerated. Humans run on spite, Arjun whispered. The doors opened again, this time admitting a squad of UEOC federal marshals. Cone adjusted his tie, looking directly at CEO Montgomery. Genesis Interstellar's assets are hereby frozen pending a multi-system tribunal. Captain Boyd is under arrest for attempted murder, high treason, and violation of the Biological Weapons Convention. As for the board, I suggest you retain exceptional counsel. You are going to need it. The marshals hauled Boyd to his feet, slapping heavy magnetic restraints onto his wrists. The former golden boy of Genesis Interstellar didn't fight back. He just stared at Arjun and Atticus with hollow, defeated eyes as he was dragged out of the room, his legacy reduced to ash. As the chaos of the arrests consumed the boardroom, Atticus turned to Arjun. The elf's posture was relaxed, a rare, genuine smile gracing his features. The grim reality of the corporate world had proven to be far more treacherous than any magical beast, yet they had navigated it and won. I must admit, Arjun, Atticus mused softly. Sylvan history is filled with epic tales of dragons defeated by grand magic and dark lords vanquished by holy swords. He looked at the legal documents scattered across the table, but I have never seen a monster so utterly destroyed by paperwork and a lawyer. Arjun chuckled, wincing slightly as the movement pulled at his healing ribs. He looked out the massive viewport, at the stars, feeling the heavy, suffocating weight of the Arcadian front finally lift from his shoulders. "It's a human specialty, Atticus," Arjun said, clapping a hand onto his friend's shoulder. "Welcome to the real world." The line between science fiction and our reality is terrifyingly thin. Corporate greed, environmental cover-ups, and the sheer willpower of whistleblowers who refuse to be silenced echo throughout history. Arjun and Atticus's fight reflects the real ongoing battles for justice in our own world. If you loved this HFY story of hard karma survival and ultimate legal vengeance, smash that like button, share this video with a friend who loves a great plot twist, and subscribe for more epic sci-fi storytelling.